Hello and welcome to HPE Discover Barcelona 2025. I'm Sue Preston, Vice President and General Manager, Advisory and Professional Services at HPE. I'm here with Thierry Pienaar, CTO, AI and High Performance Compute Worldwide Sales at HPE, and Alfons Buxo, Ferrer, Senior Partner, Global Deloitte Engineering Leader at Deloitte. So, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm delighted that you're joining me today. So, Alfons, I wanted to start with you. So, how do the Data Act, Data Governance Act, and the Cloud Sovereignty Framework change the market participation and operational strategy in the EU?
Well, this is a really good question. You know that one of the EU core values is privacy. And they started the journey back in 2018 with GDPR and how to protect private data from the citizens. I think that the Data Act has been an extension of that policy for the non-personal data. And the Governance Act is more intended to create a digital economy based on data and how to share, to make interoperability and these kind of things. So that has been the direction. Right now, the AI Act is basically an extension on the artificial intelligence field and basically focus on what you have to take into account to deliver AI services based on the type of model, the type of information that you are influencing the model, and the type of services that you are going to deliver. The next stage was the framework for digital sovereignty.
Yeah.
So the first one are more focused on the why and the what, but not the how. Mm-hmm. And the next one is private AI, how to deliver that in a very secure manner and a private manner from within the EU is important. And they are looking basically in two concepts. One, the assets and the supply chain of the technology.
Yes.
And the operations. And that's the reason why it's changing dramatically the way people is building and consuming services in the EU. And it's a shift in terms of going full public versus balancing between what has to be in public domains,
yes,
and what needs to be done privately.
Okay. No, it's interesting. And I think, do you have any advice for the audience on any immediate practical impacts you're seeing for firms handling sensitive data or building AI?
Well, definitely, that act is effective since September this year. And is both, I would say, an opportunity, but punitive as well.
Yes.
So people has to take care in terms of how they use data, not just them, but all the supply chain. So if you are using a SaaS provider, finally, from a Digital Operational Resilience Act, you are liable and accountable. It's not just the guys that are providing you the services. So what I'm seeing is one more relevant position of the data privacy officer. Second, a kind of due diligence in terms of how they are handling data, how they are sharing data, and then definitely a kind of remediation.
Yes.
On that.
Okay. And then from digital sovereignty, what do you mean in the AI era, and how does AI amplify risks and opportunities?
Well, the EU has put 30 billion for AI factories and gigafactories. Yeah. Basically, 10 billion for 13 factories, AI factories, and 20 billion for 5 gigafactories. And the main focus is to make sure that the data you are using is not leaving the jurisdiction area of the EU. Yeah. So that makes that some US providers, they have a very light touch liabilities on the contract, and this probably is not strong enough. So what we are seeing is a real intention of having private AI.
Yes.
And to deliver all those services back to the business, because at the end is about business transformation.
Yes.
But delivering a safe behind the firewalls.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what we're seeing, you know, from a residency point of view, and data is so critical. Thierry, I'd love to come to you. So what are the critical definitions, domains and ecosystems sovereign entities must evaluate in crafting comprehensive sovereign AI strategy and portfolio?
Thanks for the question, Sue. I think to Alfonso's earlier point, the definition of sovereignty really is relevant to individual contexts, right, at the national level. So really deciding and defining what sovereignty means for you as a nation and as a people, as an entity, I think that's the first and foremost. And that can mean different priorities.
Yes.
Priorities vary from country to country, from geopolitical landscape to landscape. So I think that's the first sort of key starting point. And then within that, there's a very simple sort of framework that we use at HPE that I think is applicable for this question. One is the strategy component, which I think entails the definition, but also the governance, the regulatory compliance that you're going to adhere to and continue to adhere to. In addition to that is the communities that you want to bring into the sovereign ecosystem. And that can include the private sector, government institutions, research, academia, and think tanks and various different aspects that potentially can contribute to that ecosystem as a whole. The last is to think about, I think, national security, because that really does need its own handling in many contexts. Then that sort of makes up the strategy pillar. Moving quickly, then I think the next sort of definition and domain is the infrastructure and resources, what we call durable foundations.
Yes.
And that starts at the power and cooling level. So making sure that you have the right technologies that support the demands of AI computing in the future as well as today. Transitioning that really into the actual design of the infrastructure to meet the workloads and the characteristics of the workloads that you need to support and evolve towards. And that can mean decisions on different networking technologies, GPUs, compute, storage, and software tooling as well. And then moving very quickly, I would say, is to look at AI centers of excellence. So, the concept of COE can mean many things, but aligning that to the priorities of the nation. So it could be cancer research, it could be weather prediction, it could be data regulatory compliance, or combinations thereof. The next sort of pillar I would say is talent.
Yeah.
Really making sure that you understand that if you have good talent coming out of universities, that you have mechanisms in place to really retain that talent and to give them access to programs and to the resources. Because many countries, I find this as I travel, develop talent and lose their talent.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. Talent retention, talent development, talent upskill from the preschool level to high school to PhD level, having a comprehensive strategy for that. And the last piece I'll just add is the business networks. Really, if you want to bring AI economic empowerment, enhanced citizen services, all the sort of core mandates of sovereign focus, you really need to have a network that you can leverage for that. What I mean by that is if you have AI startups as an example in that country, and they have a concept, help them bring that to minimal viable product. And then from minimal viable product, help them introduce them to the network, right, of private companies or routes to market so they can scale that product. And that combination of sovereignty strategy, the right resources and infrastructure with the talent development, and then the access to the networks and viable mechanisms to get from concept to MVP and scale really helps drive that entire ecosystem. So we could spend a day on each of those.
Yes.
But as a broad framework, I think that's a good place for sovereign entities to begin with.
I think that's fantastic then for customers and the audience really on the framework and where to get started and how to address that. So, and like you say, it's there's a wider context. How should they determine appropriate balance between leveraging AI cloud or sovereign AI providers and investing in internal development solutions and capabilities?
Yeah, maybe I'll double click what Alfons said about public and private and expand a little bit. I think the reality is that the first imperative of sovereignty is really achieving strategic autonomy. By that, I mean you're not reliant on another nation, a third party. That doesn't mean you don't collaborate or interact or leverage that, but you are built in a way that you have your own talent capability, you own your infrastructure, you have all the competencies and skills to make the capabilities that can help you basically develop competitive advantage, competitive necessity on your own merits. And so I think what I see a lot of countries and entities doing is developing what we call a classified domain, where you will have interests like national security, specific centers of excellence, partnerships that are doing sensitive research, and infrastructure and resources that go with that. But then they'll also look at how to enable more of an open ecosystem, or what we call a confidential domain maybe, where you're partnering with technology companies, hyperscalers, telcos that are national telcos, as an example, so that you can take advantage of that technology and that innovation in the ecosystem as well. Because without the confidential piece, you are missing out on the innovation. Without the classified piece, you are not achieving sovereignty.
Yeah.
So you really have to find the balance that's right for your particular scenario.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. So it's how you define that. Okay. And Alfons, who should own data and AI governance in the enterprise?
Well, AI and data is a business
Yes.
priority. So we've seen several waves of innovation over the last decades that were more on the IT domain.
Yeah.
But AI is basically impacting the way you do things and changing processes to agentic-based workloads and work processes. So it's a top C-level
Yes.
priority. So I would say that the CEO has to understand and to support the implications and the decisions in business initiatives that they imply AI. Big companies, normally they have a figure that was defined by the European Union that is called DPO, the Data Privacy Officer, and that person has extended the role to AI.
Yes.
So he's the person that has to take care from a risk and compliance point of view about all the activities related to the theme. Obviously, he has to work with other C-level.
Yeah.
With the CEO in terms of operations, with the CIO for sure, maybe for the Chief Information and Security Officer. So it's not a one-person job, but definitely a top level. The other thing is that depending on the company size, this might fall in other roles. So unfortunately, small companies, they don't have the luxury of having all these things like a risk and compliance team and other roles, so, or a CDO role. So normally, in those cases, is pushed to the CIO.
Yes.
The other comment that I want to elaborate on what Thierry said is, this is different industry by industry.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely in defense or homeland security, this is utmost and foremost important. So they have a security officer in terms of operations.
Yes.
So they take care of that. In retail banking, they have this kind of figure that we mentioned, the DPO. But it's going to be interesting how this expands to other industries like healthcare, as an example, which they are starting to use massively AI.
Yeah.
For research, but for patient trial and other things, and they're impacted hugely by this.
Yeah, and I think it's true. So it's like industry, and I think with healthcare, with patient outcomes, it's everything that you said. And I think AI economics as well. So what is it that is going to be accelerated? If I can, and I love the fact of large global corporates versus maybe smaller enterprises. Who should champion data sovereignty policy in the organisation?
I think a combination of the roles we mentioned.
Yeah.
I would say that in terms of business decisions, is probably the CEO, but it has to be coached and advised by the DPO.
Yeah.
In terms of how to implement that, I think that that's mainly on the CIO side. And probably what I would say is that there is no one size fits all.
No.
And I like very much what Thierry said, that sovereignty is a continuum. Data is a continuum as well. You have very sensible and critical data. You have important data. You have public data. Depending on that, you need to trigger different decisions in terms of what are the services that you need to support that, how you are relating to third parties in terms of exchange data, what are the IT services and the IT infrastructure that has to support it. Because it's not that everything has to go private. It's about understanding the implications. One thing that is going to be critical is the education.
Yes.
Because I think that the regulators, they have stated the problem, they have asked for the outcome, but the magic happens in the how, right?
Yeah.
And many companies, they are not equipped either with the knowledge or with the size and scale of people with the right skills that they can make it happen.
Absolutely. And I think, Thierry, you were on point with that. So I think if I can switch slightly. So, Thierry, what do you see as the most critical investment IT will be making in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think, infrastructure is clearly one of them,
Yep.
right? And making the right decision. I think that sort of goes
Yep.
without saying almost. But I think touching also some of the points that Alfonso raised around data, I think data is a critical aspect and an investment in mapping the data.
Yeah.
Because a lot of organizations find that out a little bit late. And most organizations don't know where their data is and what format it's in. And who's controlling it, and what is it subject to from a regulatory perspective. So I think one of the most critical aspects, in addition to the design and the infrastructure, is to look at mapping your data, understanding how to curate it, normalize it, ingest it, who's controlling it, is it ready to prepare, and then develop a strategy for data in the future. Because if you start standardizing for AI, it makes it a lot easier. And if everybody's doing different variations of data and formatting the data, it becomes a lot more difficult. And that's usually a massive challenge that goes with IT transformation, as part of IT transformation for AI. The second aspect, I think, is to take a broad view at the ecosystem and really understand everything that you need to bring to bear to really get from concept to production of AI in production. And there's a lot in between, and that's cultural change that needs to be addressed, process change that needs to be addressed, and then training and upskilling as well. And I think starting with short wins and helping your employees or your constituents to achieve those short wins is a way that you build confidence, you enable the cultural adoption, and then informing and educating as well. So it's not just servers, compute, and GPUs.
No.
There's an entire ecosystem that needs to be looked at. I think data is a critical pivot point, and then thinking about the ecosystem as a whole and how that evolves and what you need in each of those evolution phases is really a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned previously as well, with the data center, looking at the environmentals and the data center as well is an area.
Absolutely, yeah. Power and cooling is imperative as well.
And then, so on the upskilling, because we've discussed upskilling as well. So Thierry, what changes and focus do you see in upskilling around IT security as well within organizations?
Yeah, I think that AI brings a new generation of vulnerabilities and attack surfaces.
Yeah.
And I think, it's counter action as well as really understanding when you're being attacked. And so there's a reactive and a proactive component to that. And I think you can utilize AI in different ways to achieve those two things. So I think first and foremost is your cybersecurity teams, your IT teams, your regulatory teams, your governance teams have to become AI security experts.
Yeah.
In addition to all the other domains of expertise in security that's already present. And so that does take specialized knowledge. And I think we're going to see a whole innovation around preventing attacks in AI, but also using AI intelligently as well. So I think starting with a good cybersecurity policy, a good cybersecurity stack, and understanding where the threats are coming from and understanding how you need to bring that into the organization from a reactive perspective, but also from a proactive perspective, and then educating your workforce, your constituents again, on do's and don'ts really, and what are the risks, like putting data into a chatbot that's open, as an example, is a basic premise, right? But that evolves significantly from there on. But that's like a starting point.
Yeah.
So I think that's the transformation we'll see with security, AI.
And I think it's an ongoing area that needs to be educated and driven through the organisation as well. And then, Alfons, what are your recommendations, actions organisations should take to set themselves up for success? Big question.
It's a big question indeed. I think that building on what Thierry said, organization has been using data as a product in the past. They are building digital products now. So they need to have a really good view in the as-is. Because this extra regulation is not for the new things, but for the existing ones.
Yes.
So as-is is really important. The due diligence in terms of your tech supply chain, how you are consuming services, because you are going to be responsible for that end to end. And I would say that as we are moving from processes to agentics, the cybersecurity aspect is going to be more and more important because people know how to apply cyber in applications or custom software development.
Yeah.
But it's tricky how to use LLMs, specifically if they are public.
Yeah.
Why you need to, how you need to train and to do the inferencing. So all the cybersecurity applied to AI ops, to AI cyber ops, and internally about product development is going to be key. The other one is that they need to look for best practices because this is a very time-sensitive thing. And that is where I think that advising and consulting organizations, they can help because there is no time to lose in the process.
Yes, I agree. And I think on the education side, that's what I do across the board with all the customer engagements that I have. And I think it is a continuum. And I think as we look forward, you know, organizations, they need to know where to start. And I think the framework that you mentioned as well, Thierry, will help. So what are your recommendations? And again, a big question, Thierry, on success.
Yeah, it's a broad question, but I think starting with developing a vision is the number one thing, right? And then breaking that down into those components that we discussed, from the talent to the infrastructure to the strategy components, is important. I think the data is, I still come back to the data. I think that's still one of the most critical things. And it takes a lot more time and effort, I think, than organizations or entities realize. So that's the other aspect, I think, is getting that data mapping done, investing in, and in getting data right for the future.
Yeah.
I still come back. And then the cultural adoption. So I think there's a lot of very good frameworks out there on how to approach AI. And I think a good way is, you know, look at problem statements.
Yeah.
Look at your value chain and look at your most critical processes within your value chain. And then take those processes, identify the problem statements, and look at how you can automate, simplify, accelerate, or augment using AI and AI techniques to improve those processes or get better outcomes or accelerate time to market or time to ROI. It's a good sort of framework to start with. But ultimately, it starts with the data and it starts with cultural adoption as well, in addition to all the other investments we do around infrastructure and resources and process.
Okay, no, I think that has been really informative. So I want to thank you both for your time. I know that the audience will have learned some new things as well. So thank you for everyone for watching, and really pleased with all of the progress that we've made at HPE Discover Barcelona 2025. So thank you.
Thank you so much.